Have you ever heard the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure?
Today I'm going to show you a place that takes that to the extreme. Hi everybody! Welcome to Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa, week 130.
What?
Yeah,
We've
I
been
thought
doing
about
this
that
for
today.
So long.
I know. Anyway, today I'm going to show you some more of Brazil, and this one's really unique.
Yeah,
So,
sounds like it.
yeah, so let's show them what it is. This is a place that we went to right before we went to the commissioning service for that lady who I told you about last week. This place is like right across the road from where that big gym was where they held the service. And I don't remember what this place is called, but this is a guy who owns this property and turned it into a camp. And it's very colorful, and it's made up of a lot of stuff that people probably would just throw away.
Oh, it's a Bible verse on the sign.
It is. It's the verse that we know as "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Psalm 37:4. So when you go to this camp, and I don't know what it's like. I don't know if it's. I think it's like for kids. I don't think they have like family camps or anything like that. It's just not really set up for that. And I think it's pretty small as far as how many people they can have because they don't have like a lot of sleeping areas. But there's enough there to have like a little fun little retreat place. So when you go in, this is what you're greeted with. And if you go to the back side of the property, you have this kind of big open space where you can just do a lot of fun things. And you look at it around and you're like, oh, this stuff is all trash. Well, maybe at one time it was, but he took it and he made it into something special.
Yes.
So we see like some roof tiles there that are used for as landscaping, and big drums, buckets that are used for I don't know what, old concrete pieces that are used for something over there in the back. I don't even know what it all was. It was just fun to walk around. And here you can see the bathrooms. That building has that, and it has showers and toilets and all of that.
Very colorful.
Yeah, it is. And this is the chapel.
Outside?
Yeah.
Oh.
So do you see up there, there's a podium up there, and then there's seating for everyone, one on each of those colors.
Huh.
Yeah.
That looks like a game.
And this is the swimming pool. It was a nice swimming pool, and someone was actually using it while we were there. And then there's like a little bathhouse there, so you can wash off or dry over there. And there's some shelters over there. In fact, I wish I could find the rest of my pictures because we ate supper under one of these shelters. And then there's this, just, I don't even know what to say. There's just so much stuff, and it's all used for something. But it was one of those where you get there like, what is this? And then you walk around like, this is kind of cool and kind of interesting.
Seems like you liked a lot of orange and green or tealish colors.
Yeah.
It's very colorful.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of Candyland, like in a different color tone.
Yep. But it's used for Bible camp, so it wasn't.
Well, you know what? Kids would probably love it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
They don't really care what it's made out of. They just want to like run around and have fun.
And do they know any different? Probably not. Yeah. So I just thought I had to show that because it was so different than anything I had experienced while I was there.
It also looked really sandy too. Is that in general?
Yeah, because that's up in the northeast of Brazil where it's a lot of desert. And so actually all the roads to get there were like dirt roads, and then it's just not much water or anything there.
But they grow trees.
Mm-hmm.
So they gotta, like, Peru doesn't grow very many trees because it's so deserty.
Yeah. They do get it. They do have a rainy season there, and then everything turns green, and then kind of like when we were in Arizona, when we were there right after it rained, it's all green, but then later in the year it's just all brown. That's kind of what this place is like too.
Huh. Okay. Well, we are going to finish our missionary story today. This one has been a long one. I think this is the 10th part of this story. So we've learned a lot about the different characters in the story, and we kind of left you hanging off of the edge of a cliff last time with Hamid and heading back to see his father and see if they can get Kinza back. Well, they got to a village, and it was like the marketplace where Hamid used to go like to get stuff for his family, and they realized that from there the road was too small to be able to make it to his house. So they had to park the car there, and Hamid was still a little bit nervous. He really didn't want to see his stepfather, and he really didn't want to get caught by him more than anything. And the nurse assured him, she said, "It will be okay. You can just point out where your house is, and then you can come right back to the car." So Hamid kept thinking about it, and he still was really scared, but he remembered that he had the light of Jesus in his heart now, and he didn't have to live in darkness. But what did make him sad is he thought, there's still so many people in my village that are living in darkness. They are really scared, and they don't know anything different. Well, they got closer and closer, and Hamid's heart started beating faster and faster, and finally he stopped at the edge of some trees, and he said, "My house is the third one over there from the locust tree. Do you see that one that's got a little bit of light coming through it? That's my house." So the nurse went ahead, and she had the Englishman with her, and they walked over to the house, and Hamid was so curious. He still wanted to see his mother and see what was going to happen next. So he was sneaking along behind them till they got to the house, and of course they walked right in, and the nurse said, "Well, I am here because about 7 months ago, your son Hamid brought me your daughter, Kinza, to take care of her, and I've been caring for her ever since then, and I think that maybe you have her, and I would like to have her back." And the stepfather looked at her, and he said, "Well, Hamid did run away with her about 7 months ago, you're right, but I don't know where she is or where Hamid is. I would like to have both of them back, but I don't know where either one is." And Hamid began to look around as his stepfather was talking, and he could see his mother on the ground, and she looked very nervous, and she seemed to be kind of pointing with her head in one direction. Hamid followed where her eyes were going and saw a blanket in the corner, but the blanket had a big hump in the middle of it, and he thought he knew what was underneath that blanket. And the nurse turned as well, and she saw the lump move a little bit, and Hamid couldn't stop himself, and from right at the edge of the doorway, he yelled out, "Kinza, Kinza!" And before anybody could do anything, she came crawling out of the blanket. And there she was, and Hamid's stepfather was so angry. And his mother, sitting on the ground, looked very scared because she probably wasn't supposed to say anything about where Kinza was. So the nurse pointed her out, and she said, this is Kinza, and I would like to take care of her. I think that you would maybe exchange her for some money. If I gave you some money, I would like to take care of her and make sure she gets everything she needs, and she needs special things because she's blind, and I want to be able to help and care for her." Well, Hamid's stepfather looked at the nurse, and then he looked at the Englishman with her. He decided that guy looked too big, and he definitely did not want to fight him. So he agreed that they could take Kinza. And so the nurse was really happy, and Hamid was really happy. And as soon as he saw that was happening, he ran back to the car as fast as he could because he didn't want his stepfather to come out and find him at all. So they went back to the car, and Hamid was so excited to see Kinza again, but still kind of sad that he didn't really get to see his mother up close. And as they were loading everybody in the car, Hamid heard a voice, "Hamid, Hamid!" And it was his mother. She had followed too to say goodbye to Kinza before they left. And Hamid gave her a big hug and smiled at her and was so happy to see her. He told her that he was so glad that they were able to take Kinza back, and that this nurse was going to care for Kinza, and she was going to get exactly what she needed. And Hamid's mother paused, and she looked in his eyes. She said, "But Hamid, you need to come back, and you need to tell me what's making you different. You have joy, and you're not scared. You're not scared. It's out, and it's dark, and you're not scared of the dark." And Hamid smiled. He said, "I do have great joy, and I don't have darkness anymore." He said, "I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back after the harvest time, and I'm going to share all about it." And then they heard some more footsteps from down in the path, and Hamid hurried and got into the car, and Hamid's mother kind of went off to hide into the trees, and out came Hamid's stepfather. He said, I've been thinking, as long as you have found Kinza, I'm thinking that you probably know where Hamid is too. Hamid was really scared, but the Englishman backed the car up as fast as he could, and they just drove off and left Hamid's stepfather out in the jungle. Whew! That whole drive back, Hamid hugged Kinza really close, and he was so thankful that he had her back. But he kept looking outside at the window as they passed village after village after village, and he thought about all those people in those villages and how they just lived in darkness. They didn't know any better. Well, they got back to the nurse's house, and a few days later, Hamid heard the nurse talking with the Englishman and his family, and he realized that Kinza really needed more help than what they could give her here in their little town in Africa. So the Englishman offered to take Kinza back to England with them, and to be able to take her to a blind school so she could learn to do a lot of things on her own, and she would even be able to learn how to read, but read with her fingers instead of reading with her eyes. And the nurse said, but the most important thing is, if you're going to take Kinza to this school, is that you teach her about Jesus. That's the most important thing of all. Not that she just be able to learn to read and to do things, but that she knows who Jesus is, so she doesn't have to live in darkness. And not just darkness from not being able to see, but not darkness in her life either. And the Englishman and his wife and Jenny all agreed that they would make sure that Kinza would learn all about Jesus. Well, the day came for them to say goodbye, and Hamid waved as long as he possibly could until the car was out of sight and they couldn't see anymore. Well, Kinza couldn't see him anyways, but he wanted to make sure that he smiled and did his best to be encouraging for him. And he turned to the nurse and he said, I don't think Kinza will need me anymore. She's going to learn so many new things, and she'll be able to do them all by herself. But the nurse said, Hamid, I would really like you to stay here. Would you like to take Kinza's place and just live here with me and help me with the different things? Hamid said, well, that sounds very nice, but no. I need to go back. I need to go back to my village and to the villages nearby and to my family, and I need to tell them that there's light in the world and they don't have to be scared of the darkness, but that Jesus can change their life and everything can be different and new and not scary anymore. So he packed up the few things he had and a Bible, and he began the walk from the big city all the way out to his little village. He waved goodbye again to the nurse, and she watched him walk away, and she realized so much had changed in his life. And the best thing of all was that this boy, who was very scared of everything, was now walking back to tell the people he knew and the people from the villages nearby how to not be fearful and to know that they could have a forever home in heaven with Jesus someday too. And that brought tears to her eyes to be able to watch this happen, and it made the whole story, the whole adventure, worth it. So this was our story. I think that the cover came off because it's a really old one. Oh, here it is. Here's the cover for it, called No Darkness at All, a story about North Africa. So that's our story, and it was a really good one. I was reading about it at the beginning, and it's actually a story that's written by a lady who was a missionary nurse in North Africa. So I think it's probably based on a true story. Maybe the names aren't exactly the same, but I think it is, because right at the end of the story it says, in case any of the kids are wondering, Kinza did trust Jesus as her savior too. So that is our story, No Darkness at All.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I like that one. Never heard it before, but that was a good one. Okay, we are going to review our missionaries from the last 4 episodes. So first one up is someone who we had live, Bill and Kathy Britton in Liberia.
Oh, yeah.
And so they came on and they told you about their ministry in Liberia, helping the nationals with medical missions, camps, and church planting. Those were some of the big ones. And so they said, if you remember us, pray for us as we work there and help the nationals, that they would be able to get the resources they need and be able to be effective in helping these people be more effective in their ministry.
Yep. And then we talked about my friend Lydia in Hong Kong. And it's been really exciting since the time that we talked to her. Hong Kong has opened back up again, and they've dropped their mask rules. It's still a little bit like weird for her to like go around without a mask, she said. But it's a lot more open and not quite so scary now.
And then we told you just briefly about our ministry trip to Europe. So we are going to come back and do some more of that in greater detail. But you can pray for us as we are still working on some projects from that. But also, more than that, pray for the different ministries who are working every single day over there still in Europe, in Romania and Greece, with a lot of people who are in difficult situations. And pray that many of them would be saved as a result of the help that they're receiving. And last week we told you about the Flinks in Chile, and God has been doing some great things there in allowing them to meet back in their building for their church services, but also even more exciting than that, as they've seen people come to know Christ and join the church. The church is also at the point now where they are ready to leave and go begin a new ministry up in northern Chile. So that's a praise, but also pray for them as they make that transition, that God would guide them and that things would go smoothly.
Yeah. So hope you enjoyed all of those missionary things and what you've learned so far. Come back next time for a new story. Hope you found our hidden item today. It's kind of a fun one.
They did.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
It's a fun one. Make sure you come back next time. Watch the next one.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.